Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. Today we have a different type of story. We are going to go outside of the hunting and fishing world into the IndyCar racing world. But the reason why we're doing that is because our guest today is also an avid hunter and fisherman. He grew up in Payette, Idaho, and his name is Ray Robb. You might think, like I did, that there may be no similarities between hunting and fishing and IndyCar. But we do discuss that, and there are more similarities than you think. Stand by for a great conversation with Ray Robb.
My name is Ray Robb. I'm the driver of the number 41 Goodhart Chevrolet in the NTT IndyCar Series for AJ Foyt Racing. And you are on the Tom Rowland Podcast.
You're a natural. You got your own podcast?
No, not yet.
Yeah, well, you should.
One of these days.
You should. You're too busy driving. Ray Robb, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Tom. Excited to be on.
Well, I'm excited to have you. You were saying before we started recording that you do a lot of podcasts and you do a lot of interviews, but not necessarily about fishing, which is interesting because you're coming from the IndyCar world, right?
That's correct.
And so you grew up in Idaho, which is, I guess, why you have a background of hunting and fishing. Payette, Idaho. How in the world does a kid from Payette, Idaho end up as an IndyCar driver?
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know how this happened. No, but it is pretty crazy. I mean, I'm one of two drivers ever to come from Idaho, and it seems like God's timing and His perfect plan to get me to where I'm at today. But I was lucky enough to be born into the passion of parents that loved Corvettes, so that's where I got my passion from. It's also where I got my name from. It's not because of the fish or they were marine biologists. There's not too many oceans in Idaho. So Stingray came from the Corvette. And then from there, I mean, I was just kind of in the right spot at the right time every step of the way, worked my way up to the karting ranks, and then on into cars eventually.
So in Idaho, is karting a big sport in Idaho, or where would be the hotbed for that to where you see most? I mean, you say there's only been two drivers come out of Idaho. Where do most of the drivers come from?
Usually, I mean, I think as far as American drivers go, you're definitely going to see more of an East Coast influence. For me growing up, I spent a lot of time in Florida because that's where we could race in the winter. So you had the Florida Winter Tour Series. And then on the West Coast, you had California as well. There's a lot of drivers there. Some professional sports car drivers have also come out of there, some IndyCar drivers, as well as some NASCAR drivers. So it's kind of the two coasts that you get, and then everywhere in the middle kind of has to funnel to both of those coasts. But being from Idaho, I mean, really growing up, we didn't have a whole lot. I mean, our hotbed in Idaho was probably Star, Idaho when I was a kid. And it was a little quarter mile, super bumpy, super fast racetrack there. But now later it's kind of growing up, and it's kind of cool to see there's two new tracks that have gone into Idaho as far as go-kart tracks are. And so my hope is that we can get a young generation of drivers to kind of follow in my footsteps, and that I'm not just one of two. Maybe I'll be one of 20 in 100 years from now.
Yeah, that's so cool. Do you see a path that you can help with that? Like that you can create a school, or you can do something with your success and what you've had?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing a little bit of that already. I go back every fall, and there's what they call the Spud Cup, which is like kind of our local regional championship race that we get to do. And during that time, I usually try and do some driver coaching of some young drivers. So I've worked with kids from, I think, about 7 to about 13 years old in the go-karting rinks to try and get them tuned up and just try and share the skills that I've got. Because when you're in a club level or a regional level like they are, you don't get that sort of grand view experience that comes from traveling the world for go-karting. And so from my perspective, that's what kind of expanded my horizons, was getting to be and see and do all those things around the world. And I got to see, okay, I might be the best at my local track, but I'm a little frog in a big pond when I go to somewhere else. And so I'm just trying to bring those experiences to them rather than them having to go out and get them somewhere else that's more expensive and a lot more challenging to get to.
That's got to be very rewarding for you. I think in any sport, when you achieve a certain level and then you can pass on your knowledge and your experience, that's super rewarding. So when you start with karting, what is there like a natural kind of progression to Indy, or like, I mean, there's so many different ways that you can go about it. Like you ended up in some NASCAR stuff, and then there's the truck series, and you have all this other. Is there a kind of a common path, or do you just take these opportunities and run with them when they come your way?
Yeah, I mean, most drivers start in go-karting. I mean, that's really the foundation that you have to have because it teaches you racecraft. It teaches you basic mechanics of when I put a stiffer rear axle in the cart, this is what it's going to do. When I put stiffer rear springs on a car, it's going to be a similar idea, a similar feel that you get. But in a go-kart, it's much more visual. And I mean, you're pounding the axle out of the rear end of that cart and then put a new one in. So you get to see the effects of everything working together. And so the next step up from there is usually a lower level of whatever the series that to is. So racing is kind of unique because it's not like other series or sports where there's just one single ladder that leads to the top. It's more like shattered glass. You can kind of split over here and come back this way and then come back over this and then go up to the top. So a lot of young drivers, they'll go through what I have gone through, which is the road to Indy. And so that's kind of like the junior ranks that lead to IndyCar. So they have the single A, the double A, the triple A, and then the major leagues of IndyCar racing. And that's a great platform to use because they're racing on the same weekends as IndyCar. They're usually running with a lot of the same teams that IndyCar drivers have run with. So there's a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge that kind of transfers or trickles down through the different ranks in the junior leagues. And so it's nice as a young driver as well to kind of have that inspiration of being like, hey, Ray Robb was in the seat that I'm in 5 years ago. And if he can do it, I can do it. So it's kind of cool to see the progression as you go through the ranks. But that's usually what I'd recommend to young drivers is they want to go into IndyCar, start in the junior ranks of the road to Indy, the open wheel series.
Nice. And when you were a kid, you obviously have a background in hunting and fishing and the outdoors. How could you balance, like, it seems like the summer would also be kind of karting season, right? How do you balance your time in the outdoors with this, what started, I guess, as a hobby and turns into something far more than that?
Yeah. I mean, I attest that to my parents as well. I didn't miss a hunting season until I was about 12 years old. And the only reason I missed that is because I was on the other side of the world at a go-karting world championship over there. So I just grew up being in Idaho. It was at my fingertips, essentially. I mean, I had hunting and fishing pretty much in my backyard. Everywhere I looked, I had the ability to go out and do that. So, I mean, balancing that with being on the road, I mean, we were gone almost 42 weekends a year, some years in the early karting ranks. And so part of that was, mixing time with school, mixing time with sports. Also, we'd get a day, just one day to go hike through the mountains and hopefully see something that we could shoot at or go fishing in the afternoon after school or something. So it was limited, but at the same time, as I got into the higher ranks, I was in high school, and during that time, I was only racing from about March until September, when hunting season pretty much starts at the beginning of September. So I didn't miss a whole lot of hunting time. But when I was home during the summer, my best friend in high school and I, we would hop in our kayaks and we'd float the Payette River and go bass fishing in between races. And so on Wednesday and Thursday afternoons, I'd be out on the river, and then Friday mornings, I'd be at the racetrack trying to drive as fast as I could.
That's so cool. And at this point, do you use fishing and hunting in the outdoors as a way to relax and kind of, I would imagine what you're doing is incredibly stressful and you have to be incredibly focused when you're there. Is that a way that you're spending your off time to kind of recharge and be at your best for racing?
As much as I can, yeah. I mean, I think God has given us a great gift of the outdoors, and to be in that creation is something that I find very renewing, and it's where I kind of recharge a little bit. During the off seasons where I get to do the most of that. So you'll find me out duck hunting. You'll find me out fly fishing somewhere in the mountains as much as I can from September until about February. And that's just trying to make that a priority in my life. I mean, it's a passion of mine. You can call it a hobby if you will. Hopefully it doesn't take over my current professional hobby, but it's been pretty cool to be from Idaho and be able to go home during the off season and just have the access to that.
Yeah. So when you're growing up, you're mostly elk hunting and deer hunting. Is that what you're doing,
Yep.
or
Yep.
upland bird too, or like what was most available to you?
Yeah, big game hunting was kind of the name of the game for my family. I mean, I remember October 10th every year we were up in the mountains waiting for elk season to open up. So it was always a good thing when I got to have that time back with the family. We had elk camp where the grandparents would haul their camper up into the mountains, and that would be our base camp for most of the month. And my uncle now, he's an archery hunter, so I'll go up with him in September elk hunting. And then obviously deer hunting kind of supplements the time in between those two seasons. So it's been pretty good,
Yeah.
and I feel very blessed to, not be the only one in my family that likes to do that, because it is good camaraderie when you spend that much time in the
Oh,
mountains
for
hiking
sure.
around and you're suffering when it's dumping snow on you and it's freezing cold and you're not seeing anything. Still a good time because of the people you're with.
Man, for sure. I love elk hunting, and I hunt a little bit to the east of where you are. But it's a time that I spend with my boys. They both went to Montana State,
Oh
and
yeah.
Bozeman graduated from there, and one's still out there. But we spend our time elk hunting out there. It's incredible. Do you like archery yourself?
I like it in the sense that I like watching it. I have not gotten the archery belt on yet, so I'm hoping the next few years I can pick that up. But I've been a rifle hunter my whole life.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. But archery is an interesting. I mean, it's something all to itself. I mean, so is shooting. Long range shooting and everything. You got to, it's not like you just go out there and just wing it. You have to dial it all in, and everything has to be perfect. But the archery that's been a whole different kind of adventure for me, kind of learning how to do that. And I would imagine that, a well-tuned bow, and when you get that thing perfect, and that whatever you're aiming at, you're going to hit perfectly. If everything else is perfect, I would imagine that could be similar to driving in a certain way when you get your cart or your car just perfect, and
Yeah.
and then like now you have to operate it perfectly. But I wonder if you have any other it seems like fishing, so peaceful in so many ways, although it can be incredibly intense, especially like some of the fly fishing situations that we find ourselves in. But do you ever see any similarities to like the world of racing and
Oh yeah.
fishing?
Absolutely.
Like what? I'm be really interested to hear what
Yeah.
those are,
I
because
mean,
they seem completely opposite, right? Like one is super fast and one is what most people would consider super slow.
yeah. I mean, my initial reaction to that is, of course, they're very different. I mean, I'd way rather be sitting out on a lake somewhere off the side of a boat catching like super big perch or something and like taking that home and eating it that night, kind of a deal. But we don't get to catch and cook in racing, unfortunately. Usually, your rewards have to do with supplementing your life. But one similarity that I'll point out, and I think this goes for most things, but it's kind of that chase. We love to chase things as humans, right? We love to desire and have a passion for something. And what makes a chase really, really good is kind of the challenge, the tribulations that you go through, and the troubleshooting. And one of my favorite things about IndyCar racing is that I have to work with a team. And my job is to designate or find what the issues are so I can take it back to my team of engineers so we can find a solution. So that problem solving, that troubleshooting is what really, really makes a team great. And it's the same thing in hunting, right? Like you have to figure out, okay, where are these animals? Where are these fish at? And it's not just a quick, easy answer. We can't just throw up a map and there's red dots that pop up of where each animal is, right? Same thing in racing. Like there's no perfect setup. There's no perfect race line. So you have to go out there and find it. You have to go out there and experience it in order to find the success. And so that's what makes it really enjoyable. And I think that's why we do it. If it was easy, it wouldn't be fun. We love
Right.
the challenge. We love the sort of I guess probably the manliness that kind of comes from that feeling as well of like, man, I can do this. I can go out. I can find what the answer is time and time again.
Well, as a driver, it seems like if you were a driver that's also an incredibly good mechanic, you could at least like communicate what's going on in the car better to your team. Like how important is that as you get better and better and better? Like how much more time do you spend on like what's going on the car so that you can understand what they're doing? And I mean, I'm sure it's like, it's got to be a perfect team to win, right? Because it's incredibly competitive. So, I mean, I would imagine as you're starting this as a kid karting, and you're learning how to, deal with your own kart, like you were saying, like with the different axles and the different everything, you just kind of, I guess some people fall more as they're going through that. They would fall more towards being the guys that are the team people that are fixing the cars and making sure that they're getting the best performance out of them. Other people would gravitate towards driving the cars. How do you kind of navigate that when you're considering this as a career? Like, is it obvious, like which one you're suited for, or is it, I don't know how that works.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And it's kind of funny you say that. My roommate, I live in Indianapolis now, but he's someone I grew up with. He's from Eagle, Idaho, and he went the engineering route. So he's an engineer on a team that I raced for coming up through the ranks, and I'm a driver. So it's kind of fun. Like, we kind of get to work together because he's got that engineering mind. I bring the problem and he brings the solution sometimes. But I think what really, really affects the driver's ability to decide which direction to go is how you feel things. What's the intuition, the instincts telling you is happening? And the only way that you can have a great instinct is if you know what's happening inside the race car. You have to have a good mechanical knowledge of the car in order to understand what you're feeling, the feedback that you're getting from it, because it's so much more than visual. I mean, you can see the car sliding, you can see the front tires sliding, you see the rear tires sliding, all of that. But what really is telling you what's going on is your butt. I mean, everything is being transferred through the seat of your pants, where you're sitting in the car, how that yaw is being transformed through the load and through the bumps. I mean, we're dealing with so many different factors, and it changes the whole package. And so if one part of that package is wrong, you might have to change everything else to get that one right, or you change the one and it fits the package. So it's just a matter of how are you feeling things? What are your instincts telling you that you need in order to go faster? And so I think the guys that go more towards the engineering side, they really, really tune into, okay, what's the tire pressure? Is it half a PSI higher? If I get a half a PSI higher, it'll come in halfway through the lap rather than on the first lap, kind of a deal. And so there's just a different decision-making process that happens when it comes to how do you get the speed out of the car. I mean, there's someone that's really, really in tune to the process of it versus the actual happenings of it, I think. So there's definitely personalities that go along with those, but it's definitely hard. I mean, I think a lot of guys that grow up go-karting, they want to be race car drivers, but sometimes it doesn't work out. They don't have the backing because unlike, basketball, baseball, it's not usually the best drivers that make it to the top. Usually it's the guys that have the best abilities, but also the best backing. And so you're looking at the best in the world, but they have to be just as good off track as they are on track. You have to have the whole package.
Now, when you say off track, that's sponsorship and just like personality and the ability to raise that money. Absolutely. Or is there something else?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you got to be a spokesperson for the brand that you're representing everywhere you go. And then that also is how you network, how you visit with people, how you change people's lives. I mean, when you meet someone, you have to be able to make a difference in their lives some way or another. And I'm being very dramatic about this. I mean, I'm making it sound like a lot more than what it can be. But if you have someone that is a fantastic driver, I mean, on a school rating, they're probably an A- driver. But if there's a guy that has the B+ driver rating, but an A+ off-track rating, they're going to be the ones in the seat because they can stay there. They have longevity there. And honestly, the thing about racing is that you do have a lot of instinct, a lot of talent, but hard work beats talent every time. I mean, you're going to have a guy that is a really, really, really good young driver, but if they're not putting in the work to make to that top level, they're not going to make it. They might make it to that top level, but they're not going to succeed. And so it's the driver that puts the time in away from the racetrack that really has success on the track because our time is so limited. The further you get up in the ranks, the less time you actually get in the seat. So I'm spending much more time in the engineering room and out knocking on doors and doing sponsor events than I am actually driving the race car.
Isn't that funny? I mean, that's so similar to, in fishing and sponsorship in what we do, right? And you get to this point to where all you're doing is fishing, and then you kind of transcend to, okay, well, now we have to, we have to learn this whole sponsor world, and you find yourself fishing less, but then the fishing, which was once the hardest part of the whole job, becomes the easiest part of the whole job. Like, if you can get this other part, we can go back out there and catch fish. And it sounds almost the same thing as like what now it's like driving. That's the easy part for you now. The other part, maybe, I don't know. How did you learn about sponsorship and how to act off the track and all of that? Did you have some good people around you, or is that the school of hard knocks?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of both. I had the school of hard knocks and I had great people around me. I mean, I remember, let's see, it was 2016. So I was around 14 years old. That was kind of the time that I was making the transition from go-karting into cars. And at that time, my parents had kind of funded my career. I was lucky enough to be in a spot where my dad was semi-retired from the grocery store that they owned. And so he could be on the road with me as my mechanic. And he got his go-karting dealership license. He was working on my engine. And so he would buy and sell the go-karts that I was racing in. And that's how we kind of supplemented my career as I went through the ranks, so I could have good equipment, but also be competitive and be on the road all the time. But as I moved into cars, he couldn't be my mechanic anymore. He couldn't be my engine builder. Those had to be a team of people. And so we had to figure out a way to make it into that next level, how to break through. And so my manager actually came on in 2017, and his name's Peter Rossi, and he's the father of Alexander Rossi. People might recognize that name, and that's because Alexander was the 2016 Indy 500 winner, currently drives for McLaren in the IndyCar series. And so they figured out a program that worked for him and then met us with it. And so that kind of helped me fund my career as I got into the upper ranks. And along the way, I was doing meet and greets. I was doing sponsor events. I actually would sit down with potential investors, a group of 30 professionals, and I would present myself to them as a young up-and-coming athlete that they could invest in. And so as a 15-year-old kid, 16-year-old kid, I was selling my career to these guys and giving them a pitch on why they should get into motorsport racing, which sounds crazy as a 16-year-old kid from Idaho named Stingray. Like, don't trust them with your money. That's a bad idea, but so far so good. They've been doing well. So, yeah, I mean, you just kind of, you learn as you go. I didn't have any media training. I didn't have any professional training to like go out and get a business degree. I mean, this is stuff that we had to learn as a team along the way to get to the top.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I mean, same thing. I don't have any training in any of it. It's mostly the school of hard knocks, but also, you know, both sports of fishing and racing, you have lots of pioneers that have been out there in front of you that have created basically a plan of how to do it.
Yeah.
Bill Dance, has been on TV for 60 years now. All you got to do really is watch what he did and then do that. And you have lots of drivers that came before you that you can look and say that guy seems to be the most professional one. He's highly sponsored. What's he doing? Yep. Like, I want to learn more about him and what he's doing and then just do that, right? Like that's crazy. That when you were traveling so much with your dad, what would you travel in? Did you have like an RV or what was the whole rig like?
Yeah, so we had a 12-foot trailer that was towed behind a Chevy 2500 or 3500 truck that we'd travel the country with. So I'd usually load up in the back seat. I'd have my pillow that I could sleep in. I mean, we were doing road trips all the time back and forth to Vancouver, BC area, Arizona, sometimes East Coast to North Carolina, Florida, all that. So if it wasn't my dad and I that were driving all over the place, it was my grandparents, and we'd fly out and we'd meet them somewhere. So if there was a tight turnaround, they'd hop in the truck and head that way, and then we would meet them halfway there or something like that. So a lot of times it was simple, easy, and just trying to get from place to place as quick as possible.
But how would you get your cart there?
The grandparents would tow it. Yeah.
Oh, they would tow it, and then you would fly, and then they'd bring it back.
Yep, that's correct.
Did you have two carts
Yep.
at times, like an East Coast and a West Coast or something like that?
Sometimes. And, the deal is with karting, it's a small world, and I'm sure it's the same for fishing, right? I mean, we grew up running the same circles that we're still running in today. And so teams and the people that you were racing against kind of became your racing family. And so we said, hey, we can't drive back and forth to these two races next weekend. Can we just throw our cart in the back of your truck and you take it for us? They'd say, yeah. So every once in a while, we'd be with a rogue team somewhere in the middle of America because we didn't have enough time to drive our cart to and from that race. And we'd unload it out of their trailer and go back to our little space and load it back in. And they'd take it off to the next one sometimes.
Wow. That's awesome, man. That's like kind of like rodeo. It sounds a lot like rodeo that people would do that. And then there were some bass fishermen that there would be two big circuits, and there was almost no way to fish both of them. But if you could fish both of them, you have a chance of winning a lot more money. So they would have a boat, truck set up, the whole rods, everything on the East Coast and one on the West Coast, and then have people, if it was somewhere middle of the country, whichever one of those rigs is closer, that one's going there.
That's
it gets
exactly
pretty
it. That's
complicated.
Exactly it.
Yeah, but that reminds me of that movie, 8 Seconds. Do you remember that movie? Did you ever see that one? It was about rodeo, and Lane. What was his name? I can't remember what his name was, but he is Tough Hedeman and Lane Frost, right? I think. And it was a great movie. But they started rodeoing, and then they thought, man, what we should do is we should get a airplane, and then we could fly. And instead of doing one rodeo a day, we could do a couple rodeos. And then, they had this whole thing going, and they kind of took it to a new level at that time. But that's a great movie. I mean, a really great movie. I hadn't thought about that movie in so long. Stingray, we do this thing on the podcast where it's called the hot seat, and I ask a bunch of different questions, either or questions, kind of rapid fire. Don't put too much thought into them, but it's a good way of kind of getting to know you better, and also for the audience to get to know you better, and it gives us a couple things to talk about probably afterwards. So, you ready for the hot seat?
I'm ready.
Okay. This one's going to be, the first one is maybe the either the most obvious or the most intriguing. Would you rather drive or fly?
Drive.
That's kind of what I thought. But as the last the conversation that we were just having, you have probably driven, not only real fast driving in circles, but also you and your dad are putting, I don't know what, 20,000 miles on your car. 30,000. How many miles would you put on a car in a summer?
I think the most we did was around 50.
50.
Yeah.
50,000 miles. Yeah. There's a lot of good talking time in there.
Yeah, lots of good windshield time.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, we'll get back to it. So, drive or fly, you'd rather drive. Chocolate or vanilla?
Vanilla. Chocolate makes me sneeze.
Text or call?
Ooh, I would say text then call.
Text then call. Would you rather hunt or fish?
Hunt.
Okay. Favorite athlete of all time?
Oh, that's a great question. Shoot, I'm gonna say MJ.
Good one. Okay, you know what a Rubik's Cube is, correct?
Yep.
Okay, if you had a choice of going to prison for 2 weeks or go to prison for the time it would take you to solve the Rubik's Cube,
give me the 2 weeks.
Which would you pick?
2 weeks would be way faster.
That's kind of my answer too, except you could pull the stickers off. I remember pulling the stickers off when I was a kid.
Do that.
I just saw this guy the other day, and he was juggling 3 Rubik's Cubes, and while he was juggling them, he was solving them.
Oh my goodness.
And I was thinking, what in the world? I put it on my social media because I thought, what have I been doing wrong? This guy can juggle 3 Rubik's Cubes and solve them all at the same time, and I haven't been able to solve one yet. Okay, so would you rather have 10 million or 1 million now or 10 million later?
10 million later.
Okay. Favorite car of all time?
1966 Stingray Corvette.
You can do one outdoor activity. You can do it as much as you want, but that's the only one you get. What are you picking?
It's funny. This is counteracting my last answer, but fly fishing, probably.
Okay. And if you could fly fish for one species, you could fish as much as you want, but you could only fish for that one fish. What would it be?
Probably trout.
Any particular type of trout?
Well, I was going to leave it general, so I had more options.
No, we push it. We push the edge here. What is your favorite kind of trout?
I would say cutthroat.
I would think that from where you're from, that would be the answer.
Yeah.
Idaho has some of the greatest cutthroat trout fishing in the world, and the Snake River Fine Spot cutthroat, it's right there. Yep. I mean, that's the only place it lives, and the Yellowstone cutthroat too in Idaho. Let's see. Best piece of advice you remember being given?
Oh man, there are no accidents.
I like that one. One thing you do every day that makes a difference in your health.
Reading my Bible.
Mindset or skill set?
I think skill set.
Which is more important? You think skill set's more important?
I think so.
Interesting.
I think that, well, we can get into that.
Well, we'll talk about that right after this question.
Sounds good.
What would you consider your catch of a lifetime? Could be a fish, might not be.
Ooh, probably my fiance. We're getting married in November, so I was pretty lucky to catch her.
All right. And where's she from?
She's from Indianapolis area.
Okay. And does she know about racing, or
Oh, yeah.
did she kind of grow up racing? She's a race fan?
Yeah, being in the Indianapolis area, she had to know it one way or another. I mean, Indy 500's
Yeah.
the biggest race in the world, so for her, it was like, oh yeah, I'm sure you're a race car driver. That makes sense. But it's actually kind of funny. One of our first activities was going to her parents' house and going frog gigging. So I knew that she liked the racing side, and then I found out she liked the hunting side. So I kind of won the lottery on that deal.
Well, can she cook frog legs?
She can. She does good.
Okay, well that's the grand slam.
Yeah.
She likes all of the things, and she's a great cook.
That's right.
That's fantastic.
Pretty good.
Yeah. So you're getting married in November. Do you know where you're gonna get married yet?
Yeah. We're getting married in November near the Indianapolis area, and then we're gonna do an Idaho reception about a week later with my whole side of the crew. I got a large family, and it's a bit of a mess, so I said, you know what, forget it. We're gonna come to you guys. We're gonna throw a party there, and then we can have 2 awesome weddings.
That's a good idea. And then it's November. Is that when it's going to be
That's right.
in Idaho? That's a beautiful time.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful time in Idaho. Man, there's nothing like the fall in the West.
That's right.
I love that. I mean, the fall in the South is really nice, with the leaves changing and everything. But there is a certain feeling, like this impending winter coming, and you're just like. You just see everything scurrying around like we gotta stock up. You guys have no idea what it's going to be like here in about 4 months. Right?
Yeah. It makes you not take it for granted, I think, too. You feel that pressure.
Yeah.
Like, okay, it's a nice day. We're going to go out and we're going to use it.
I know, you really do. I mean, in the South, when it's fall, it's just a really nice time to be outside. It's a really nice time to be in the woods, but you don't kind of feel like if we don't use this now, we're going to be sorry in a few months where we're just going to be sitting inside.
That's right.
What did you think about the Idaho winters? It sounds like you were on the road 42 weeks, so you didn't have to necessarily deal with the Idaho winters like some people, but Idaho's a cold state.
It is.
And where you are, I would imagine, is really cold. I know the other side of Idaho where I spent the most time, on the South Fork of the Snake River. You have the Snake River that comes really close to you, but it's slightly different.
Yep.
It's very cold over there.
It is. Yeah, where you are. I mean, I've heard stories of family members that used to live there where it'd be negative 40 in the winter with, a wind chill that's on top of that. So we're not quite that cold where I'm from, but in the winter times, I mean, usually it was go snow skiing or duck hunting. Those were our 2 activities. So you'd wear the layers and head out and enjoy it. I mean, I really love 4 seasons. Having 4 full seasons in Idaho was one of the things that I enjoyed the most about it. I mean, obviously the scenery is great, and the activities are great, but being able to kind of like see the process of each one, I really enjoyed.
So when you're duck hunting in the wintertime, are you finding a spring or spring creek, or how are you hunting ducks?
I mean, there's a lot of options there. There's some hot springs in our area that we used to go hunt, and there's also the river, the Snake River, that rolls through that never really quite freezes over. Sometimes it gets close and we avoid it on those few weeks, but the hot springs are really cool because they'll flow into a ditch, and so everything's frozen over. You can go jump shoot the ditch and shoot a few birds out of it. So it's a good time.
Nice. Yeah, that's cool. And what ducks are you getting primarily? Lots
of mallards. Where I live, it's actually a lot more wood ducks, which is interesting. One of my first ducks was a wood duck. And so
mine too.
Yeah, it's kind of funny to see. Like, I'm now living in the Indianapolis area, and they're like, "You shot a wood duck? No way, that's cool." So I'm like, well, yeah,
you don't have wood ducks. You don't have wood ducks in Indianapolis.
They do, but they're just a lot fewer and far between. So I guess it's a rare thing here. But I haven't been duck hunting here, so I probably shouldn't speak too confidently about that.
I mean, a wood duck, I think, is the most beautiful of all the ducks.
I agree.
And you have a lot of programs where, like, Boy Scouts or different groups will build the wood duck, boxes.
Yep.
And it's pretty. And then they'll use them, and they put them all around lakes and stuff. And I think that's really helped the population in certain areas. But I love the wood ducks. I think they're the most beautiful duck we have in North America.
And they make really cool sounds too. It's not just your standard quack, which I like.
Yeah, that was my first duck too, wood duck. I bet that's a lot of people's first duck. You got like I think wood ducks are like a duck that if you have like a little piece of property that you could hunt on with some trees around. you probably got a pretty good chance of having a couple of wood ducks there where I don't know if you're going to really pull in, 50 mallards, like a little larger area maybe, but mallards like to pour into those little tiny places. My son in Montana, he's got a little spring, and man, it doesn't take much, and they will cover that thing up. I went this year to Edmonton, Canada, and hunted with my dad and my boys, so 3 generations. And we did, everything was dry field.
Oh, wow.
Have you ever hunted like that?
I haven't done any farm field hunting, no.
I hadn't either until now, but my dad's getting a little older. He's 86, and he loves duck hunting. And so I wanted to take him someplace where he didn't really have to do the waders and the boats and everything. And, he still gets around pretty good, but you put a pair of waders on and that's a whole different story for anyone, really.
Yeah.
I mean, but an 86-year-old, I was trying to I wonder if there's something that I could do. And my friend was like, you should check this dry field hunting out up in Canada. And I looked at that, and it's incredible. But these mallards pour into these fields, and the geese pour into these fields. It's truly amazing. I mean, like where I grew up in Tennessee, we were occasionally like just on the edge of the flyway, right? Like just barely. I don't know where you sit in the flyway, but when you're barely on it, you get a few ducks here and there. When you get squarely in the middle of the flyway, it's pretty totally different.
It's pretty good.
It's totally different. There are so many birds. It's truly amazing. I mean, you look in the sky and it's just everywhere you look, there's just clouds of birds. Now, they're not all going to come to you, but I mean, they have a million places to go because it's all fields up there. But for some way, those guides know up there, there's a real good likelihood that they're going to, if we put up a big decoy spread here, there's a really good likelihood that we're going to get them here.
That's cool.
And man,
did you guys hunt out of pits, or were they blinds, or what was the setup?
We started out in lay down blinds, which is kind of that's like the cat's meow, right? Yep. Like that's the best thing. But honestly, my dad was having a little hard time with that. We had a couple other people that the lay down blind wasn't necessarily ideal. So we did that a few times. And then it was like they would make these A-frames, and they would come and they would brush them all in all the way down. But they would bring everything in a trailer that had all the decoys, the A-frames, all the brushing material, everything. And then when we left, all of that went away. Like all of the branches, all of the brushing material, all of the everything. They would have just tons of this grass, and they would brush you in totally. And it was amazing. I mean, those guys were incredibly professional, but just like you, those guys duck hunt like every day. Yeah. Like you race. You're like a everyday guy. 42 weekends out of the year, you were racing as a kid, and I don't know what your schedule is now. It sounds. What is your schedule now? You said the off season was March through September is when you're racing, or yeah. So that's it. Yeah, March through September.
That's it. So we do about 17 race weekends, a few practice weekends here and there, and like this week, for example, we were in Mid Ohio, so it's dead smack center between Columbus and Cleveland. I'm home Monday. I'm flying out tomorrow to go to the simulator in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm in the simulator for the whole day there with the team. Fly out from there straight to Iowa for our two races there this coming weekend. So there's a lot of back-to-back in the racing season, but there's also like kind of testing in between each one. So it's really stacked into that, like sort of, I guess it would be like a 7-month window. And then the rest of the year, I mean, I'm kind of free and clear to do whatever I want, as long as there's no sponsor events or whatever.
So what do you do? Like, I know that physical fitness is a big part of being a race car driver, so you got to stay in shape.
Yeah.
What do you do to stay in shape as a driver?
Yeah, that takes up a lot of my off season. So there's a gym here in Indianapolis called PitFit, and they specifically train drivers and mechanics and engineers, and their goal is to get us fit and ready for the season. So a lot of times, all the growth that we're doing is in that sort of September to March window. So I'm usually up 10 pounds at the beginning of the season, and I'm down 10 pounds during the racing season, just because it falls off. I mean, we're burning so many calories and using it up, and it's hard when you're on the road. I mean, really to stay in shape and keep that physical strength up, it can wear you down through the year for sure. So trying to find a balance there is what I've been working on the most lately. I mean, as a rookie, that's something that I took for granted, and it's something that I've gotten a lot better at this year.
So what kind of stuff do they have you do?
Lots of lifting, but more than that, it's a lot of sort of like endurance athlete training. If you look at like sort of triathletes or runners, it's a lot of that same sort of cardiac output range. I mean, we're anywhere from like 130 to 180 beats per minute on our heart rate for a race, but the races are 2 to 3 hours long normally. And so for that time
Wow.
period, you got to be able to sit in the car, have your heart rate elevated at that level, but also inside the cockpit can be 130 degrees. And so it's that heat training. So we sit in the sauna, we'll go out, we'll do a little 20-minute exercise where you're at max heart output, and then you go back and sit in the sauna and you'll do cognitive training. So they'll have reaction, they call it synaptech, and so it's a lot of visual reaction.
Like
Yep.
touching the lights when they light up?
Exactly. And there's also like another level to that where they can have you put these goggles on and it'll black out your vision for a quick quarter of a second and then flash open, quarter second, flash open. And so it's to try and impede your vision like you would have on a racetrack. If there's a crash, a car is going to flash in front of you and it's going to reveal the other side. So you got to be able to react in that short window of time where you can see.
Wow. And so they have you do this in the sauna?
So you usually do it right before and right after you get in the sauna.
Okay.
That way because when you're hot and you're sweaty and you're like exhausted, your brain and cognitive function goes way down. And so they want
Yeah.
you to have that tuned up so you don't have that big variance in your cognitive function.
Wow. And so how hot do you have your sauna?
Usually they set it to about 140 and we'll sit in there
Okay.
from 20 to 40 minutes depending on the day.
Okay. And then when you're doing that, and as it applies to racing, how are you monitoring your intake of hydration? Like, do you have a hose that you're drinking out of in the car?
In the car we do, and I'm going to be honest with you, we don't utilize it enough because it's just sitting there for you to sip on. I mean, you'll get the cotton mouth, like you're hiking up a mountain and you're sweating and heaving. Same idea. You just wet your mouth in order to survive and keep breathing. So we're not really focused on the hydration during the race. It's all before and all after. So I'll drink like 3 or 4 electrolyte drinks before I sit in the car on race day.
Okay. And how do you manage not having to pee while you're in the car?
You're not worried about it at all. I mean, it's
Not
all
at all.
coming out. It's all getting sweat out.
Yeah.
So I'll lose about 3, 4, 5 pounds in a race just in sweat.
Yeah. 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 I know what that's like. I was a wrestler, and you would lose, 5, 6, 8 pounds in a practice.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah.
I mean, especially like back when I wrestled, we didn't do it right, but they would tell you that it was weak to have water.
Yeah.
Water is weakness. So you wouldn't have any water during the practice, and then you would just keep sweating. And of course you feel terrible afterwards,
Yeah.
but that's a pretty extreme thing to think about, that your heart rate is going to be at 170, 180 for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Like, even if you're running a marathon, your heart rate's not quite that high. I mean, you can be like 160 to run a pretty fast marathon. I ran a marathon in 3 hours and 13 minutes.
That's pretty quick.
And well, it was at the time. For me, I mean, I'm not a great runner, but I did work hard at that, and I was trying to break the 3 hour mark. No, it was 3 hours and 10 minutes to make Boston, and I hit 3:13. So I look at it as kind of a pretty much of a disappointment. But years later, I look back and go, 3:13 wasn't so bad.
That's pretty good.
But I didn't meet my goal.
Yeah.
I wanted to run Boston, and I didn't qualify for it. 3 minutes later, but that's pretty intense. And I would imagine that your reaction time, like the way they're training your reaction time, is really interesting. And throwing you into they're putting you in the sauna, and then training before and after. Now, when did you start with a team of people training you? How early in your career did you start paying attention to your physical fitness and thinking that maybe that's a place where you could really step it up?
2019 and 2020 was kind of that stepping point for me, because 2019, I was still in the AA ladder, as it's called in IndyCar racing. It's the USF Pro 2000. It's complicated, but you don't need to worry about that. But I was getting in races that I physically couldn't hold on to the car. I mean, I felt like the car was getting away from me, and I said, I think it's sliding. It's like, no, the car's not sliding. You're just running out of breath. So like I
Wow.
remember specifically there was a race towards the end of the season. I kind of worked my way into this team that was very good, and through the year I slowly progressed. And then I got to the last race, qualified first, and was in the race and was leading right up until like the last 5 laps. And I just drove off the track by myself. There got to be a little dirt on the tires, and when it came time to make a correction to a slide, I had no energy left to do it.
Wow.
And so after that I made the decision to hit the gym a lot harder. And so that off season I really went into the program with PitFit. And then 2022 is kind of where I took it to the next level. And I got to see sort of the strength that was needed. Then it was endurance. Now it's the strength. I mean, really, the physical stamina that you have to have in the car is great, but also the strength that you have to have because of the amount of torque that's going through the steering wheel. It got to the point where it wasn't I was running out of breath. It was I physically was not strong enough to turn the wheel anymore. Because on a hot track with sticky tires that were brand new and a full fuel load, the car is heavy. And so when you lean on those tires, you feel the weight. We don't have power steering. And so the amount of G forces that I had through my body, plus the steering, plus trying to hold my head up with my neck muscles, it all added up to the point where it exceeded my limits. So that's still something that I'm working on today. I mean, you'll see drivers get out of the car, they're hot, they're sweaty, they're exhausted. And I think that that's just kind of the name of the game when you're pushing the limits like that.
Wow. That's really interesting. And so how are they training you for that type of endurance to get stronger at holding the wheel for that amount of time?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that we can do. They have what they call French contrast weightlifting. And so you'll do, let's say, a bench press workout where you're just doing a standard barbell bench. You'll do like, let's say 3 to 5 reps, rack the bar, and then you'll get off, immediately go over to a medicine ball, and you'll do 6 explosive throws at the wall. And then you hit the ground and you're going to do 6 explosive push-ups. And then you're going to get on an elastic band actually and do 6 more explosive push-ups. And so that French contrast is the contrast between heavy load weight when you're trying to explode through that resistance. And then also what we do is called isodynamic workouts. So same idea, you'll do a bench press with what we usually do dumbbells instead of barbells, but instead of doing a full range of motion, you'll stop halfway up and hold for 5 seconds. When you finish holding for 5 seconds, you finish the rep, go all the way down, go up to halfway, hold for 5 seconds. And you'll do that for about 90 seconds at a weight that is on the limit of being at failure. I mean, you want your last rep to be a grind to get it out. So we'll do those kind of in offset weeks. So one week we'll do French contrast, the next week we'll do isodynamic along with, that's kind of our accessory work along with the main workout, whatever it is.
Wow. And so what would the main workout look like on a day like that?
Usually it's a full body lift. So you do a bench or a squat or a incline bench and a deadlift, something like that. And then usually the isodynamic or the French contrast would be tied in. So French contrast would usually go straight in with the workout. Isodynamic would be an accessory part. And then in between each day, we would do a cardio session. So we have threshold workouts. We also have sort of a steady state, long endurance day. And then a lot of times what we'll do during the off season is we'll have sort of competition between the other drivers where we'll do a 10K ski erg or a 10K row. Or one of the things that they always love to introduce is the death ladder. The death ladder is you do 100 meters on the rower and then 1,000 meters on the ski erg. And you'll do 200 meters on the rower and 900 meters on the ski erg. And so you're going from one end to the other on both machines. And that will wear you out. It's about a 40-minute workout when you do it that way.
What's that called?
Death ladder. Called the
Death ladder. I love it.
Yeah.
I'll definitely be putting that in.
Yeah.
And because it has a really cool name, it'll be perfect for my group.
That's good.
I really like that. I've never really thought about doing that. I have 3 skis in my gym.
Perfect.
And then we have like 13 rowers. But I've not heard of I spend a lot of time thinking about and reading about workouts and different modalities and stuff, but I haven't heard of that French contrast and the isodynamic. I've seen that, but not by that name. It's really interesting. What about your diet? What are you eating? Like you say that you're losing so much weight in the season, but what about how does your diet change from in season to off season?
I mean, I'm eating just about as much as I can, but it's hard on race weekends because I'm so nervous. So I can't intake anything. But a lot of times what I'm doing is breakfast is usually yogurt, Greek yogurt, whole fat, non-sweetened with granola, banana, some chocolate chips, and maybe some almond butter, peanut butter in there mixed in every once in a while, and some honey. So I'll either do that or an omelet. And then lunch, like today for lunch, it's actually kind of cool. We had a friend at the last race that had just gone walleye fishing. So he sent us back with like 5 pounds of walleye. So I had
Nice.
ramen with walleye and a couple boiled eggs in it. Phenomenal. And then usually for dinner, it's as much as I can eat, whatever it is. So I'm not cutting out carbs. I'm not cutting out any sort of fats because those are things that I need as far as calorie intake. I mean, on a race day, we're burning close to 4,000 calories. Um, After the race, it's usually around 38, 3,900. So I'm eating and trying to recover with as much food as possible. The big thing is fats, honestly, which is interesting on race day, and that's where the yogurt comes into play. You get good fats, good whole proteins from that, and then also the carbs kind of come from veggies or fruit or rice or pasta. So
Hmm. Hmm.
it's a big combination. There's not really anything that I try and cut out as far as types of food. Just no processed foods if I can avoid it. No sugars that aren't natural. So it's usually pretty limited on that side. But if I can have honey, if I can have a little bit of fruit, it's usually pretty good to get me through the day.
Hmm. Are you working with a nutritionist, or do you have anybody that
I have
helps you with your diet?
Yeah. So at different times, I've kind of checked to make sure that I'm still on the right track as far as foods go. And I got the green light last time. One thing they had me introduce is dried fruit, which is interesting because it's higher caloric intake with
Yeah.
less of a filling food. So that's kind of a snack that I'll have in between meals.
Wow. And at what point did you notice that the changes in your diet were really making a difference in your performance?
Probably about 2021, so 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Sorry, more than that.
Okay.
That's more than 2 years ago. It's 2024 now. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was running out of energy through the day at the racetrack. I mean, I'd get off the racetrack, I'd feel good on track, but I'd come in and I'd sit with engineers and I'd be lights out, fall asleep, sitting in the engineering room. And so I'd have to go lay down, take a nap, reset, I'd eat, and I just feel very sluggish and lazy. And so when I started, putting in calories that I could burn, it like woke me up. And so I quit having to have a shot of espresso to get in the car. I quit having to have, whatever it was to wake me up. Um, Food's a great thing. It's a tool that we need to utilize more often. I think people underestimate that.
Right.
Like if you're low on energy, you check your diet out, it can change your life. I mean, the way that I train, the way that I'm racing, it affects how I eat. The eating should not affect it, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You're eating based upon your input
Yes.
and output,
Yes.
right? Like your input is basically in proportion to your output, right?
Yeah.
You have to have enough calories to support yourself and your brain and your focus and your body.
Yep.
And if you're not getting that, you feel dead.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So what about your daily schedule when you're in season versus off season? Like you seem like you're just going all the time, and this is you're a professional athlete.
Yeah.
You're what does that look like in season versus off season?
I mean, in season, there's a lot more activity for sure. I mean, there's a lot of engineering meetings. I'm spending more time on the simulator. So I actually have a simulator here at my house that I get to train on. So yesterday, for example, we were on track racing Sunday, drove home Sunday night, Monday morning rolls around. I took it as kind of a recovery day. So physically, I'm not doing a lot. I did a little bit of rock climbing and rode my bike a little bit. And then I'm eating what I can. But then I'm on the simulator for about an hour and a half with my team getting ready for this next weekend's race. So we did a little bit of online training there to just practice passing, practice race lines, all that stuff so that I'm ready to go, kind of switching gears to the next event, switching to looking forward rather than looking back at the last race that we were at.
Wow. Does a simulator wear you out like the car?
It can, if you spend enough time on it. It's funny, yesterday I was starting to feel it because I was still sore from the race from Sunday. But I was joking around. We're having a series of ovals coming up, and I said I think my right shoulder is going to be bigger by the end of the season than my left shoulder from turning left so much. But that's just the way it goes, I guess. You got to figure out how to get through the pain a little bit.
Wow. I wonder, I don't know anything about this. Is fascinating to me because I think that it's, your physical performance, even in something like fishing. I mean, the type of fishing that I did, basically pushing a boat, 16-foot boat with a stick, a couple guys in front. It's usually blowing 20 miles an hour right in your face. And so it is a lot like being a professional athlete. And I found that, I was doing okay, but kind of like you, I started to get in better and better shape. And then I realized, this is a direct proportion to my performance on the water.
Yeah.
I have more focus. I have more energy. I'm better at talking to my customer. They're having a better time. I'm able to be attentive to their needs and what's going on with the tide and the wind and and I'm able to catch more fish. And so I found getting in better shape, I was catching more fish, and I was a better fishing guide.
Yeah.
So that led me to want to get in better and better and better shape. That's where the running came from. And then now it's like, okay, well, now what can I do? Like, can I pay attention? What happens if I pay more attention to my hydration, my electrolytes? Mm-hmm. And then the performance goes up. And what happens if I pay more attention to my diet? The performance goes up even more to where it becomes almost like an obsession. Like now I want to be in as good a shape as I can possibly be in because I see that turns into dollars in my pocket, being able to be a better fishing guide on the water. Yeah. And I see that with so many sports. But I wonder in racing, like, do they test for performance enhancing drugs?
Yeah, they do.
Like it seems like this physical stamina would be a place where you could actually really improve your physical stamina with certain drugs. Absolutely. I would imagine, but I don't follow racing enough to know if that's like something that's common that people get popped for a drug test.
Yeah, and there definitely is drug tests that go on. A lot of times it's drivers that have been smoking something that they shouldn't be, they get popped for it. But I mean, there's also been stories of guys where they said, "Man, I'm feeling really tired at the racetrack," and then someone says, "Hey, take this pill; it'll wake you up." And so they take the pill. It's like the best race of their career. And they're like, "Man, what was that?" It's like, that was Adderall. And you're now banned from the series for the rest of your life, kind of a deal. So they're very, very attentive to that. And they want the drivers to be healthy. I mean, that's a big thing in IndyCar racing is they have a very good safety team and medical team. And so they don't want to see your performance be bad. That's not why they're limiting us. They want us to be healthy and have longevity in the career that we are in. So they're helping us find natural ways to do that. So they do cognitive testing preseason, and they also do vital checks during the season. They'll do random drug tests during the season. So they're trying to make sure that everyone on the teams, so not just the drivers, the mechanics, engineers, everyone is doing their job to the best of their ability and also staying healthy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes all the sense in the world. You can't get behind a pickup truck and go 55 if you've had things in your system, right? Yep. So why would it be different if you're going 200 miles an hour? Like it seems like, but I was thinking more along the lines of like performance enhancing drugs like steroids or like things that can help your like even blood doping of like the same things that bicycle riders do. Like it seems like that could be very effective in driving, and I'm sure that with as much money as on the line and everything else that they are definitely testing that in all the drug tests. It's just interesting. I never even thought about that for a driver because obviously in talking to you, the physical strain on being a driver is intense and more than most people realize, I think. And then, of course, if you want to be really good at it, then you see that not only as a place that you have to have that, but a place that if I get better here, I'm going to be better out there. And that's a controllable factor. Like you can control your diet, your hydration, your training. To a point that's I don't know. I just never really. I guess I'm not as much of a race fan as I should be. But I didn't. I mean, I knew that
we'll win you over eventually. Don't worry.
Yeah. Well, no. I love watching it, but I just didn't know that about how much you're paying attention to what you're doing in the gym.
Yeah.
And even the pit crew, man. Now this part I do know just slightly about. Do the pit crew train at the same kind of fit crew place that you train?
Some do. So my pit crew does not currently. They do have their own gym at the shop that they work at that they can train on as much as possible. But honestly, right now we're in the midst of the season where it's just go, 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 go. So they're turning the car around rather than practicing pit
Right.
stops. So our pit stops,
Right.
because I'm on a smaller team, are not as good as some of the others where they're training every single day in that area. But you definitely see it. I mean, you can definitely see the advantage of someone that is fit and fast on the tire changing, because tires aren't light, they're heavy. So to be able
Right.
to pick one up and throw it around and throw another one on, you got to be strong and you got to be quick and accurate.
But the advantage of just a slight improvement on that is
It's huge.
massive.
It's huge.
Massive. How do you get to the point to where in your career to where it's like, okay, now we have funding to, like you said, you're on a smaller team, you don't have the advantage of that. I mean, I don't want to, I'm not sure that's exactly what you said, but how do you get to the point where that becomes like a real focus of the team?
That's kind of the last thing, honestly. I mean, if you get the engineering right and you get the basic mechanics right and you get the driving correct, that's usually the last tower to fall. And part of that is because when you get everything else right, it creates less work for the team because you're doing less changes in between sessions. You're dealing with less fatigue on the mechanics in between races because it's usually a larger team. So instead of having 7 mechanics, you have 10 mechanics. So that the
Mm,
extra 3 people really makes a big difference on how quickly a car goes together, if a new wrap needs to go on, if a new wing needs to be put on. All that stuff just happens much more quickly and efficiently. So it opens up an extra 45 minutes at the end of the day. They can hop on the pit stop car and practice pit stops.
nice. Yeah, that's super interesting. So, as far as like this year goes, do you have any hunting trips other than what I know you got the wedding you're planning, hunting, fishing trips that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, so actually, I'm having my bachelor party coming up here pretty soon. I had a small window during the Olympic break that we could fit it into, so I'm gonna get some of the guys. We're gonna go up fishing. There's a high mountain lake that I like to hike into near where I live, so hopefully I'll catch a few cutthroat there. It's one of my favorite places to get up there, and it's just so quiet and so peaceful and it's so beautiful. So that's the goal. And then for the off season, definitely some duck hunting, definitely some upland hunting. My uncle, he takes me upland hunting as much as I can get him talking to going. He's got 2 wire-haired pointing griffins, so we'll head to the mountains with them.
Nice.
And my other buddy's got a yellow lab and a boat, so we'll hit the river in that and go get some ducks and maybe some elk hunting. Fit it in there somewhere. I got to figure out where that's going to be. Hopefully in October, I'll be making a trip back to Idaho before the wedding if the fiance lets me sneak away for a little bit.
Nice. On the upland bird, are you hunting chukar, grouse, pheasant, all of them?
Yeah.
What are you hunting?
Yeah, we got huns, we got chuckers, we got grouse, all that stuff. So I actually sorry, tripping on my words here. I shot my first chucker during the off season this last year, and it's kind of cool too. It was like wildlife day because my fiance flew in with me. We were gonna go out for the weekend and see the family, see the mountains, get to show off Idaho a little bit, winter over, and on the drive up to where we were chucker hunting, there's like 100 head of elk. They're bugling down in the valley below us as we're hunting up this mountain shooting chuckers. And it was like, when you go chucker hunting, usually you'll see 10 to 14 birds on a good day. We saw like 35, 40 birds. It was
Wow.
unbelievable. And it was just like, what the heck? And then on the way home, we saw like 3 bald eagles, like 14 deer. It's like unbelievable how many animals we saw. And she's like, "Is this normal?" And I'm like, "No, don't get used to this. Like, you're gonna come with me every time we go hunting." So it was pretty
Did
cool.
it winter over?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely did. It was good. It was
Right
a very
on.
good day.
That's fantastic. Well, man, I've loved this. I really had a great conversation with you and learned a ton about racing, and it's cool that we have commonality in the hunting and fishing world.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for
Tell
having
people
me on.
how they can, yeah, man. Tell people how they can follow you and cheer you on.
Yeah, so I'm on all social medias at Stingray Rob. That's Sting Ray and then ROBB, 2 B's in Rob. My website is www.stingrayrob.com. And if you want to follow on the IndyCar series racing, you can go to the NBC Sports Broadcasting app, Peacock TV. We're also on the USA TV network for some races, so you can tune in there as well.
And what's your number?
I'm number 41, and I'm in the Good Heart Chevrolet. So it's kind of cool. The car's white with paw prints all over it, and so you can definitely pick us out. It's an iconic iconic livery that we have.
All right. Well, we'll be watching. We'll be cheering you on, man. And good luck with your wedding, and also with all of your hunting and fishing. We're glad to have you in the hunting and fishing community, and you'll have that whole community behind you as you're racing all year.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. All right. We'll be back next week with another awesome guest. And thank you to Ray Robb for coming on and sharing his story. All right. See ya.